Welcome back to Raoul's house. I don't know, was it a couple of weeks ago? I think it was, maybe 3 weeks ago. I started work on our indoor workshop. That's the plan for it anyway. I've actually got this side of the room done now. And painted all the door, 1930s door, reinstated the right lock for this door, which amazingly they still make. And you can get them in Toolstation. They're not that expensive, and they even come with the handles. Bargain. And that shuts fine. I've got a little bit more. I need to put a piece of trim down there just to tidy the edge up, because at some point in the past it's had lots of plaster put over the actual timber frame. So when I come to finish the architrave, which I've done that side, I've got the next piece to cut to go across the top, and then I'm going to have a thin bead of wood that will go down there and tidy that up, make that look nice. Light switches are in. Hence, plunged into darkness. Yeah, I got the. They're going to glare a bit on my camera, but got 6 spots in, so if we get plenty of brightness. Because originally this room was going to be a kitchen. In fact, there are bits, pencil lines on the wall where I'd marked cooker socket and various other things, and it's not going to be that now, because we've just found a better use for it, to be honest. But I wanted to, and I'm going to start on that side tomorrow. I got all the paper off this evening, and but I don't like doing too much in the evenings, especially when I'm working during the week, because I get too tired. So I'll strip the paper. Tomorrow night I shall come along, fill all the little holes in the wall, of which there are hundreds. So my dad did like to drill holes, and I've got to finish off the picture rail, smooth that off, because I've removed it in this room. There seems no point in having it, to be honest. We're not going to use it in that. As I say, I have kept it in the front room because I think that'll work. I've put some temporary curtains up. Had to put a new curtain track, had to put a new board up at the top, and temporary curtain track and curtains, really, so it'll allow me to work here in the evening. I will need actually longer ones by the look of it. But tonight I went to see a lovely lady in Warwick who'd got a teal door, that's the colour of it, with a snail knocker. And she'll remember me because she said, "Thank you very much, a human." People say that when they meet me, I don't know why. Anyway, I bought these off the lovely lady, £5. You can't go wrong with that, can you? They are really nice spots as well. Nice chrome ones. So I'm not sure whether they should go up on the ceiling. I think they may end up, or maybe put them on the wall, vertically. I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it? The whole room being finished. But I think for now I will put them on the ceiling, so it gives me some additional light while I'm working in there. So, where are we? Well, you'll notice the skirting is missing on that wall, because I want to put a lot of storage stuff on this, and I need to get it up as tight as I can get it. I do have lots of bags of plaster, trowels, hawks, that sort of stuff. So what I'm going to do is clean off this mastic, whatever it is there, and that's it, that long white strip. Get that off, and then I'm going to, and plastering isn't my best skill, it has to be said, but I can get that flat. So I'm going to plaster across that, but I'm going to put, I don't know, maybe a small piece of wood underneath, so that when it's nearly gone off, I can pull the wood out. I just want to leave a slight gap at the bottom, just tiny gap. I don't want to plaster to the floor, it just seems ridiculous. So I'm just going to leave a slight gap, but that's what I'll do to finish that. The little bit of skirting at each end, I shall keep that. That's fine, and then I'll make that tidy. Already started work on putting a socket in there, and you're thinking, why is that socket so high? Because they are these days. It's so that people can reach them if they're in wheelchairs, that sort of stuff. Accessibility. And it doesn't bother me, them being that high. Though I did say I was discussing this with Phil, my neighbour. A wise owl is Phil. But he said, no, I don't like them there. He said, they're too much on display. He said, I like them low, which is fair enough. But this is a workshop, and it will be more useful to have them there. So I'm going to put one there, one here on this wall, and another one over there. So that's 3 doubles. That should be enough. If something can't quite access it, then I can always put an extension lead, whatever. But there we go. But I've still got all these raw plugs. They do say the best way to do it is tap it in and then plaster over. But I found that doesn't work particularly well with my father's raw plugs, because when you tap them in, they don't budge an inch. So I found the best way is to get a pair of pliers, and it does damage the plaster around it a bit, but just actually get them out and then just replaster afterwards. You know, various where I've done them. In fact, you can't even see it on that wall now. Completely covered them. So that's what we're going to be doing this week. Continue with that. There are sockets, you'll notice, laying on the floor. These were the original sockets when I moved in here, but they hark back to a time when, well, I don't even like them where they are. They're just not practical, so they will get cut out. All of this is dead, by the way, because when I first moved in, one of the first things I did was turn off the power of the consumer unit, or the fuse box if you like, and cut every single cable that came out of it. And someone said, why have you done that? I said, well, it's an old Wilex Bakelite fuse box with fuse wire, and now I've cut every cable out of it, I've got to rewire the house. So that's what I did. And you know, all these new cables that I chased in for the light switches, I ran all these myself from the consumer box. If you remember, you watched last time, there's 3 cables to that light switch, because we've got 3 switches obviously. And I shall also be running the 13 amp sockets, you know, the 30 amp or 16 amp depending. I haven't got a lot of load on this, we'll see, or 20 amp, don't know, got a choice. So that I've got some sockets around here. I won't put a socket here near a radiator. As I mentioned before, that is the only radiator that's in this room, but by the time you've got computers on it in here and a printer and a 3D printer, it warms the room, trust me. You don't need any extra heat, so that little radiator will be fine. It will just keep the frost off of this room. And I also have got the diesel heater. There's my lift door, which makes a brilliant worktop, and it will be reinstated in here. I did have it here actually for a while with all my tools on, but because I want to get on this side of the wall, I needed to get it out of the way. So right, I'm going to press on and get all these plastered over, and then we'll come back, which I'll probably do that tomorrow night. So we'll come back on Thursday and see how things are going. Well, we've got 2/3 of the lighting in anyway, and the light switch over there, 3 position, that's in. Got all that wall done. I will have to chase out for boxes, but it doesn't bother me if I've painted the wall and I've got to chase after it. No bother. I can get it smooth again and repaint it. It'll disappear. You know, my main thing is to get all the walls flat first, which I managed to do. A lot of sanding, and in the case of the wall opposite, I have to stand back a bit. This wall, and there's just a little evidence of it on the ceiling, but there was a chimney breast here, which I suppose makes sense going back to the days of coal fire. And this house is about 1930, I don't know, I'll say 35, it's not far off. There was a chimney breast in here, but at some point it has been removed. I don't know when it was done. My sister lived here, and my father after her. No, he's not around to ask, and you know, even with heavily intervention, although I can almost hear his voice, he'd probably say, well, I'm not sure, Ralph. That would be him. My sister didn't have a clue, so I'm just assuming it was done probably before my sister moved in here. Anyway, I discovered when I took all the paper off, this was just the old plaster, but then there was a whole new section. So I thought, right. And the level wasn't great. There's just sort of a bit of a ski jump up and a ski jump down. But I managed to get it as smooth as I'll never get it dead flat unless I get, you know, an industrial sander on it, and it's going to be murder doing that. But so I just gave a bit of, you know, took the contour out a little bit with surface filler, and you can't see it now, in all honesty. Still got that cable hanging down. We haven't decided exactly what that's going to power. But it'll be low. I think it'll probably be LED strip. We may still do that and put it around the top. My son said, keep it kind of industrial looking. I said, yes, I will. I have that in mind. It's not going to be chintzy, you know, even though we used a sort of chintzy colour on the walls, just off white really. The skirting on the bottom, I removed that because I really want to be able to get units close up against this wall. So clearly I'm going to have to plaster that. I'm not the best plasterer in the world. In fact, I may not even video it. That's how bad I am. But I think I'll get an acceptable finish. I'm getting the hang now of putting plaster on, letting it start to go off, and then just go over it with a trowel, and you get quite a smooth finish. I've done it in a few places on the wall, and you never see it now. So, yeah, that's the kind of state of play, and I've just stopped having chased out this socket. It'll be the first 13 amp socket in, well, it's had one in its history, but not at this height. They were all on the skirting board like that. I've had to drill down behind the skirting board. It doesn't come off, luckily. It loosened a bit, made the gap a bit, but obviously I can fill that up with acrylic afterwards. And I did notice that there was a board. See this one here? This one's been up. So what I'm hoping is I can feed the cable from this end. Well, I won't put it through that hole, but I'll feed it through there, make sure I can get hold of it this end under the board, and then I can take it back to the consumer unit, which is that direction. And I also don't think you can see any daylight through it, but I did drill right through there because my thinking is first I'm going to get this 13 amp socket in, so I've got power in here, which would be really handy, not running on an extension lead all the time. But when I come round and I've connected the sockets up, so they'll go under boards and stuff like that, it'll come up to this one, but instead of going back down again, it'll go straight through and into the sockets on the next room. Clever thinking, you see. So I thought, right, drill that hole before I put the back box in, and then I've got a way of joining on when I continue in the next room. So that's it at the moment. I'll give it a little clean up, and then we'll kind of assess where we are. I do have to paint behind that small radiator in the corner, and unfortunately the plumber, great as he was, hasn't given me any slack to be able to lift that rad off the brackets and pull it away from the wall, which is a bit annoying. But there is a way of taking off radiators without having to bleed the whole system too much, or at least without a big puddle of water. So we may try that in the next Ralph's house. I will show you, and we'll see if it's a success or not. If not, you'll witness a nice flood. A word about back boxes. It's just something I discovered, and someone's going to argue and say that's not the right way to do it. Each their own, I say. But what you normally do is you chase out a sufficient depth hole for this back box, with your cable sitting there behind the fascia, and it has to be flush with the surface. Right. Normally people put in raw plugs into the brick behind and screw to that. I don't bother, because modern bonding plaster sticks like to a blanket. So what I do is I just pop the cutouts up. See, just fractionally I've lifted them up all the way around. Then when I fill with plaster, it sits in those ridges. I tell you, once that's gone off, no way are you going to move that back box. This plaster's wonderful stuff. I use it a lot, especially on a quite stiff mix like this. And I've only got about a mil of plaster or finishing plaster to put over the top just to smooth that off. Really important, when I've said it before, if you're using bonding plaster, it's got to be just below the surface, because this is really hard to sand. And I have to say, the bricks themselves were really hard. It took me a considerable amount of time to chase that. Not so much that was easy because you're just taking the plaster off, but trying to make sufficient depth in the brickwork to take the back box. Yeah, bolts and hammer. Luckily I didn't whack my knuckles this time, but anyway, that's how I fix in back boxes. I rely wholly on the plaster. I've never had a weak socket or a loose socket or anything. Once they're in, they're stuck. I'll tell you what, where your walls meet your ceiling, you often get this untidy line, you see it? The wallpaper is on the ceiling. But if you cork it, like I just have, it all vanishes. And then once it's gone off, you just lay a piece of masking tape over one half, paint that half to get a nice sharp line, and then flip it the other way. Stick the masking tape the other way if you like, or just cut in accurately, which is what I tend to do, but you can do it with masking tape. Coming along. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.